Do you sort of have an opinion on sales and how important they are as a skill?
Yeah, I think sales is life. I teach my kids now, maybe to my detriment sometimes because my 4-year-old daughter negotiates when you want her to do something, even at school or whatever. There's always a counter offer with her.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Welcome Football podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Patrick McCreanor, who is the CEO of Soccerex. So Patrick, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
No worries. Cheers, James.
So we're going to start with some quick-fire questions, do a little bit different here. First of all, who was your boyhood football team?
Liverpool.
Liverpool. Okay, me too. So you like that?
Yeah,
You like this?
yeah. I appreciate the trend. Yeah,
Right, what a win yesterday that was.
yeah. It was a tough one. I think it made it harder than it needed to be, but we'll take 3 points at the minute, however they come.
Yeah, 100%. First game that you remember going to?
Probably show my age now, the 1986 FA Cup final, Liverpool-Everton.
Okay, awesome. And then growing up, favourite player?
John Barnes.
And then best away fans that you've ever seen?
Oh, it's going to be like an obscure one. That's a tough one. Dortmund, probably.
Okay, wow, yeah, that's cool. Awesome. So, I suppose, first of all, could you, tell us a little bit about your journey, coming from like a sales background, various sales roles to becoming now, CEO of Soccerex?
Yeah, sure. So I've had a 25-year now commercial career, predominantly in the old days in publishing or on the commercial side of publishing and advertising in the city. Started very humble roots of selling job adverts in a local newspaper in Hackney, where I grew up in East London, and just seemed to do pretty well at it. So at 24, 25, I was one of the youngest sales managers in the UK in publishing, certainly, where everyone was quite a lot older than me that had been around for a long time. And then went on to be sales director and manage kind of large sales floors of broadcasting companies and organizations like Thomson Reuters and Henley Media. I launched Sports Pro magazine alongside David Cushman and James Emmett, who now run Leaders, one of what would be deemed as a competitor of ours. We go way back. Yeah, and so I stayed on the commercial side there as well, again, kind of building either commercial businesses with an option or with a view to selling them on or to keeping them if they were really profitable. Launched my own publishing company a couple of times, went pretty well. Moved to the South Coast about 12 years ago to give the kids some fresh air and maybe not be stuck in an office all the time. And I did that for a couple of years, kind of freelancing and building sales teams for people or turning around a failing business that wasn't doing so well. And then Soccerex came calling about 5 years ago. I came in to the business as head of sales and marketing again on the commercial side, and was made CEO about 18 months later in November 2021.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. That's some journey. And I just wanted to touch on it at the start. So, how important do you think those sort of sales skills are for anyone really? Because I've got my opinion on that. I think sales, everyone should just sort of learn that. But yeah, do you sort of have an opinion on sales and how important they are as a skill?
Yeah, I think sales is life. I teach my kids now, maybe to my detriment sometimes because my 4-year-old daughter negotiates when you want her to do something, even at school or whatever. There's always a counter offer with her. So that's good and bad sometimes. But I think sales, whether you're selling yourself, no matter what the industry is you work in, right? If you want to achieve and excel, you need to be able to sell at least yourself. And I think sales down the years has always been overcomplicated. I never watch any of these kind of sales gurus apart from one, which is a guy called Brian Tracy. And if you're into sales, I'd recommend any one of his books. But The Psychology of Selling changed my life, his book. And it meant that sales went from being my job to being something that I did as part of my everyday life and actually who I was. And I also think that no person should be a better salesperson at any company than the person running it. And so I'm not a typical CEO. Most CEOs come from a finance or operational background. I don't, as you know. But I do feel that the person running the show should be the best salesperson there is at the business. And I just think it's always overcomplicated. It's just about getting on with different types of people.
Yeah, 100%. I read a book from he is a guru actually. His name's Subi. He's an Australian guy,
Yeah,
and his book, forgot the name of it. But anyway, he's talking literally what you just said about sales is like the lifeblood of a business. You're in the same game. If you look at maybe like a carpenter, it's not about you could be the best carpenter, but if you can't get clients, if you can't, get clients in and you can't sell,
mm,
then it's not going to maybe thrive. So yeah, I agree with
no, for sure.
completely. And have you always had a sort of an interest in that, like growing up and that type of stuff?
I think like most people, I wanted to be a footballer, but I grew up in a part of London that was very entrepreneurial. East London in the 80s. Some legal, some not, obviously. But I think if you look at my family, a lot of them had their own businesses, whether they were cafes or market stalls. And I would work wherever anybody wanted me to work for a few pounds, right? And learn those sales skills probably earlier than most did when I was selling jumpers on my aunt's market stall in Hoxton when I was about 8 or whatever. So yeah, I think I've just always been kind of natural at getting on with different types of people from different walks of life, and enjoyed it. And I always wanted to make money, and sales can give you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, 100%. So, for those viewers and listeners who may not be aware, could you tell us exactly what Soccerex does?
Yeah, so Soccerex effectively unites the football industry. So it was started 28 years ago by Duncan Reevy, who's the son of England and Leeds legendary manager Don, with a view to effectively bringing the industry together under one roof, which is quite difficult. I think anyone that works in the game, especially on the sales side of the game, that wants to sell into football clubs or federations or leagues or whatever, it's incredibly difficult to do that unless you've got a black book of contacts. And so we take away a lot of that and bring a couple of thousand people together that are mainly C-suite executives from the global world of football. Normally, I have about 70 countries represented from around the world, again from FIFA right the way down through the pyramids globally. We have a couple of days of a conference where there are tons of insights and presentations and panel discussions on everything from performance to stadium building and sponsorship and anything else that's pertinent to the world of football. But effectively, we our strapline is football connected, and that's essentially what we do. We bring everyone together.
Yeah, and I just want to say to people watching, whether you're a football fan or you want to work in football, or maybe you're a business and you want to, B2B, that type of stuff. I think I've just come back from Soccerex Miami, and it is the sort of the event to go to. Had a great time, met some unbelievable people who I'd never even be able to meet if it wasn't for that event. So yeah, definitely recommend that. Is there a sort of a schedule for the next? Is there some events announced in the next few months?
Yeah, so by the time this airs, people would have seen, we would have announced Soccerex MENA officially, which takes place in Cairo on the 23rd to the 25th of February. We'll be back in Europe again in May, most likely to be at the Cruyff Arena in Amsterdam, and then back in Miami again in November. So it'll be a crazy busy 2025 as we head towards a World Cup year in the States in 26.
Yeah, and that's exciting. So yeah, if you're a fan, like I say, definitely get to Soccerex. It was a great few days. So talking about careers, what is the best piece of advice that you've received?
Perfection is the enemy of progress.
Okay.
That's something
Yeah.
that took me a long time to learn, and it was repeated. And funny enough, it's Joe DeGrosa who's the main shareholder at Soccerex. I can be a bit of a perfectionist and want things done in a certain way, but it can get in the way, and sometimes you just have to get on with things. I think that's something I've learned more since I've been CEO, because sometimes when you're wearing so many different hats and need to take care of so many different things, not everything can be perfect, right? And as long as you're striving to get better, that's all that matters, really.
Yeah, 100%. And in terms of the worst piece of advice, could you remember like a bad piece of advice that you've received?
Uh, I was I was once called I was once called a Cockney Barrow boy by a sales director that I work for, a publishing company in the city, who remained nameless because unfortunately the guy now is has passed away. Um, but he said that I don't come from the right stock to ever be a success of myself. So yeah, that was a pretty poor day at the office.
Yeah, it's always good to, look back on things like that. Maybe if people have said things, but the reason I ask that question is because, someone like myself who's, started this business called Work on Football and trying to sort of do well. And like you mentioned earlier about those gurus, but all my Instagram is full of do this, do this, do this, don't do this, don't do this. You have so much advice, and sometimes
Yeah,
it's like your head's going to explode. So I always like to ask people, what is the worst piece I've ever received? Because like I say, there's so much out there nowadays.
and most of it's nonsense. I think maybe again I'm a little bit old school, but I think that old saying of those that can't teach. I think says a lot about people in sales or the commercial world. I've dealt with hundreds of sales trainers down the years. I've probably met two good ones. It's always overcomplicated. There is no one way of working or selling or whatever. It's all about being individual and bespoke and honest. And I think if you can do that, you'll do well.
So I was thinking about this question this morning. What are the maybe three things, about putting on events, about running events that you only realized once you became CEO of Soccerex?
Mm, I think you maybe underestimate how much work goes into these kind of things operationally. Um,
Mm.
I think coming from the commercial world, it's very much a let's do the deal, and then it's somebody else's problem, right? But then when you become the CEO, it becomes your problem. Um,
Yeah.
it's very easy for budgets to get blown and to go way over budget. It's very, very easy to do that. Thankfully, we don't because I approach things slightly differently again to most CEOs operationally. That's a couple of them. What else? What else? I think it's probably only those. They're probably the two major things, really. Operation is very difficult to execute an event of kind of our size when you have so many different people come into it and so many different facets of it. Um, or maybe number three is not everybody can handle the social aspect of events as well as some others. So, but yeah, I think most importantly, I think operationally and from a budget perspective, it's very easy for things to spiral out of control.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. And I'm going to ask this from a selfish point of view. We've just started to put on our own events in terms of linking up students who want to work in football and people who work in football. Now, say you've got like a year ahead, would you just work, Miami, focus on Miami, then focus on Cairo, or are you working on a little bit of Cairo before, and then when Miami's finished, you're working on Cairo and then Europe?
We always try and get a little ahead. Um, Sometimes circumstances dictate it doesn't work that way, depending on your partners and things like that. So again, a lot of that is partnership led. So we've got, let's say, La Liga as one of our main global partners, for example. Out of the three major markets we'll cater for this year, all of them might be of interest to them. One of them might be, or two of them might be, or whatever, right? Depending on timing and strategy and budgets and all of those things. So um, it's very much we work on everything at the same time with a kind of drill down and focus as an event gets closer. So at the moment, we've got not even one eye on Miami next year just yet because we haven't even finalized what that venue looks like. So it's kind of
Yeah.
bite-sized chunks, really. The next few days will be all about Egypt and get everything in place for that. The agenda, the ticketing, the website, all of that operational stuff that we don't enjoy too much. And then the marketing stuff starts and then the campaign's up and running. Because we've only got 3 months until Egypt, it's going to be pretty intense. So it'll be a very much focused on Egypt. And as we go into the new year, then we'll start looking at Europe because by the middle of January, Egypt will be ready to be delivered and then we can focus on Europe. But most campaigns are about 6 months in length.
Okay. So you'll go to Egypt to like for the press conference, and then will you not go until like the week of the event? Is that how it would normally work?
Depends. Sometimes there are site visits in between. It depends again on the partners you're working with. So for Egypt, thankfully, we've got a brilliant partner in Sports Expo who've been delivering events in Egypt for a long time. So they have a lot of people on the ground that will almost act as extensions to the Soccerex team out there. So there might not be the necessity to go out there again. With such a short window, because again, time in the air is dead time, really, and I hate dead time. So I'd much rather make the most of my day if I can. So maybe, I suppose, is the short answer. Possibly first week in Jan, maybe. But I've got a bit of traveling to do before Christmas. So, like I said, Egypt tomorrow, then Amsterdam, then back home, and then yeah. So maybe mid Jan.
So, what is one thing that you've learned about leadership whilst, working in the football, the events business?
I think the main thing I learned about leadership was a long time ago. It wasn't even connected to events. It's just about I learned some of it from being managed myself, and then some from managing people, right? And I think that the mistake that a lot of people make is treating everybody the same. We're not the same. We're all individuals. We wake up motivated by completely different things. Some are motivated by money. Some are motivated by looking after the other people. Some are motivated by holidays. Whatever it is, right? You cannot treat an entire team the same. If you do, it will fail, or you'll just lose people because I never liked being treated the same as the guy sitting next to me or the woman sitting next to me because I'm not the same as them. And unless you get to know your staff intimately well and know what makes them tick, they'll just be a part of the team that will eventually leave to be appreciated somewhere else. And if you look at my team at Soccerex, but forget them being employees, some of them are some of my closest friends. I went to school with one of them. And I'm 45. So, imagine how long we've known each other for. But other people I've known for 20 years, 10 years, my partner looks after all the design work for Soccerex. It's very much, I always shy away from the term family because that makes it sound dysfunctional. But we're a close-knit group of individuals that make up a good team. And I think that it's important that all of those people are treated individually.
Yeah, I could tell. So I didn't know that you went to school with one of the guys, but I could tell you're a really close team. Like seeing you guys obviously at the event, but also at the airport after in Miami, waiting to come home and it's you guys there. I just thought, no, Alex, a really cool team. So yeah, no, they seem a really good.
Well, one of the people I was sitting with when you saw me at the airport was the guy that I went to school with, Jerry. So
Oh,
we've
yeah,
known
that's
each other
a
for,
commercial manager, right?
yeah, Jerry, the commercial manager. So we've known each other for 31 years or something now. So, yeah, a long time.
So, do you have a story, or can you remember something that that went really wrong at at a past event?
Yeah, last year in Miami, our ticketing system collapsed 10 minutes before we opened the door, which was an absolute disaster. And our plan B was stuck in traffic, in Miami traffic, and that can be very bad. We're stuck in Miami traffic an hour and a half away. So what started as it being a good thing to see a huge queue outside the venue, um, soon turned into horror after 5 or 10 minutes when we realized we couldn't get the people through the door. So eventually we had to open the doors and let people in, which is not really what I'd like to do. And I think that upset quite a few people. But I think as this year proved, we learned from that, and the registration process was pretty seamless a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, that was as close to as a disaster as it can get, I think.
Yeah, Jesus. What sort of goes through your head when something like that happens? Is it just like solution, solution, solution?
Pacify and then solve the situation. I had tech people behind me trying to solve the issue, and so it was my job to try and pacify certainly the senior people that don't really like to be kept waiting around, um, and then look for a solution for sure. But yeah, thankfully we found one eventually, and it won't happen again.
Yeah. And this year I think I waited, 1 minute probably in to get through on the Tuesday morning. So yeah, it was very
Yeah,
smooth. Um
yeah. The aim was to get everybody through the door within 3 minutes, and that was achieved. So
yeah, the queues, there was a lot of people there obviously, but the queues were, it was moving really fast, which is
yeah,
obviously great for the people. I went to I won't, name him because it's not fair, but went to a similar event, and they said 9 o'clock entry, and then 9:20 you're still sort of waiting for the doors. And I think in the UK we're very big on nine means nine, and so it's good to see that sort of. You know what I mean? The British people, they're very impatient, I think.
Oh, I went to a military school, so timekeeping is something that is
Yeah.
very high on my agenda, and so you can imagine that what was going through my mind when that was happening at our event. So yeah, sympathies if there was something going wrong behind the scenes. It's pretty painful.
Yeah. So what does the next 10 years look like for Soccerex?
10, that's a big number. As long as we keep getting better, and if we experience the same kind of growth trajectory that we're on now, then I won't be here after 4 years. So, that's the plan for me is to do another couple of years maybe, and then assuming the board are still happy with what I'm doing and how I'm producing and stuff, and that's always important, obviously. I think they are right now because we're in a really good place. Um, I think we continue to grow. I think we enhance and expand the media side of the work we do. So Soccer TV becomes a real thing, and the dream for that is for it to become the kind of Bloomberg of football. And with my broadcasting and publishing background, it's pretty natural to push a business like that. And the way that people consume their content now, suggests that there's absolutely a spot in the market for something like that. And so yeah, if we can do that over the next some more countries that we've not done before is always exciting. So Egypt is a new one. We've spoken to people all over the world because they always want to host a Soccerex because it's good for the local economy. We generate about $6 million for the local economy, no matter where we turn up. So there's always an appetite to have a Soccerex in city X or whatever, and it's quite a long drawn out process to finalize what that city will be or where that city will be. I won't look beyond 5 years, but I think in 4 or 5 years' time, because I've got a plan to retire at 50, and finish writing my book. But I think, let's say 4.5 years' time, when I will be 50, we'll have put on another 12 or 15 events, taken over the football industry business from a media perspective, and the team will be 3 times the size it is now.
Yeah, wow, that's really interesting to hear, actually. So again, you may have just answered it, but like you said, 4 years and you'd look to leave your role. Do you have, like you just said, you'd like to retire at 50? Do you have like career ambitions? Do you have like career goals that you still want to achieve?
I'm really lucky, and I think that's one of the things that keeps me really motivated. If you'd have said to me 20 years ago I'd get to run a business that combines my two loves, which are football and the commercial world, I would have bitten your arm off, because it is for some, not just me, a dream job. As much as it's very stressful and very taxing and proper labor of love stuff, I work on average 65, 70 hours a week. It's an incredible effort, not just from me, but from everybody else in the team. And yeah, I think 4 or 5 years that I think that no, see, I've been really lucky. I've met a lot of legends, I've met a lot of heroes, been to a lot of big football matches. I'd like to see River Plate versus Boca Juniors in Argentina. I've not done that. That's on the bucket list. But no, the plan for me, I've got 5 children, and 2 of them are under 4.5. So the idea would be that I won't put them through another 10 or 15 years of me traveling and not being here and working all the time and that sort of thing, and enjoy their childhood a bit while I sit around getting even fatter and finish writing my book. That's the dream scenario. But it's always difficult to realize those sort of things, but we'll see.
Yeah. So what advice would you have now? So we obviously at Work and Football, we help students who want to break into, the industry, coaches, scouts, analysts, commercial roles, event management, whatever. What advice would you have to those people looking to break into football?
Just keep knocking on doors. I think it can be a very difficult industry to break into. Spend time to build your network, reach out to people, demonstrate that you won't be outworked, because there's so much competition for every role, whether it's an operations person at a football club or a marketing person or whatever. There's always going to be a ton of people that are looking to secure that position. So don't be outworked, keep knocking on doors, and don't be demoralized when you get the first few no's, because they will come. And I think, accepting each of those and then keep pushing on is probably the key. It's very rare. It took me a long time to get this role, and I'm not saying it's going to take everybody else 20 years to get their dream role. It might not. It might be a lot quicker than that. But I think that it's very easy for people to get discouraged or demotivated by the first few no's, and it's, oh, I'm not cut out for this. If it's what you really want to do, and it's what you love doing, then you are absolutely cut out for it. And just make somebody else understand that.
Yeah, so just picking up on one thing you said is like the resilience. I think that's so important, and we tell our students that, and actually, pretty identical to what you said. When students are applying for roles, I tell them to like expect a no, like expect you
Yep.
won't even get a reply from your application. Expect not to get a reply because that will happen. And if you can expect that,
Yeah.
then it makes it a little bit easier because those rejections will come. Like we had a guy, I spoke to a guy yesterday. He's applied for 200 jobs in a year. Which one of the things I said to him was, well, let's have a look at the CV because that is an awful lot of jobs, and let's have a look at your application. But you will. It is normal to get loads of rejections. So yeah, I completely agree. It's so hard to break into, and it's so competitive.
So I say to my commercial team, even yeah, it really is. Yeah, I mean, I say to my commercial team even now, um, every no you get is closer to the yes, right? And that's a really old school mentality, and I realize that, but it's true. It's absolutely true. Maybes don't pay the bills. Yeses are fantastic, but no's are good too because you know where you are. If you get a no, okay, great, take it on the chin, keep moving. It's that old Rocky analog, right? It's not how hard you can hit; it's how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. And that's
Yeah.
it's film and Hollywood, but it's genuinely true, and that's pretty much the mantra that I live my life by. Really, I must be the only
Yeah.
CEO, certainly in the UK, maybe globally, doesn't have a university degree.
Oh, really? Wow, that's that is very impressive. It's again the whole uni thing is. A lot of people are realizing now you don't need to go to uni to be successful. Online education is a big thing now, but like you say,
It really
you
is.
don't need it. Yeah, especially
You don't,
in
nothing really translates experience. You can't replace
yeah,
any experience you might get. I'm big on apprenticeships and stuff.
yeah. That's one of the biggest things. I say at working football. Get experience when you're at uni. If you are going to uni and if you graduate with zero experience, why the hell is a club going to take you on? Because they've got 100 people applying for these roles. You ain't got a chance in hell. And I think the unis need to push that a little bit more. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is.
Well, they won't because it's profitable, so they won't do that. Nobody's ever going to say don't go to uni, right? And I won't come out and say don't go to uni. All I will say is that it's not for everybody. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out in the market and earn and learn and on the job learn. And I still think there's a massive factor as to how you can learn very quickly is on the job learning. Take jobs that you might not be comfortable with, take jobs that might not be your dream job, and just learn stuff. And absorb as much as you can from the people that are around you and mold that into your personality, and then you've got a chance.
So, would you have, a last message to students who are, looking to break into football or looking to break into the event management side?
Persistence overcomes resistance every time. If you look at one of our latest recruits, Ryan Davey, I don't know whether you met Ryan in Miami. Ryan messaged me
Right.
every week for Ryan messaged me every week for 6 months. Every week. And now he knows why you have to message me every week for 6 months, because I'm not always, as you found out recently, I'm not always the best at replying, but I get, maybe 400 or 500 messages a day. Ryan messaged me every day, every week for 6 months, and eventually broke my spirit. And I spoke to him on the phone, and that diligence paid off, and I employed him, and hopefully he doesn't leave because he's a great addition. He's young, he's hungry, he works hard, the clients love him, and he's performing very well. And he's a living, walking, talking example at Soccerex as how persistence overcomes resistance.
Yes. I met Ryan, and yeah, great guy. What a guy. That's really interesting as well about that because, sometimes I think when I follow up 3 times, I think I'm being a little bit of a pest every day for really. That is
You
crazy.
know
I
what?
like that.
If you believe in it, what's the worst somebody can say? Swear at you. They're going
Yeah.
to say no or leave me alone. In which case, fine, I'll leave you alone. No problem. I always I still sell now, in a different way. But I even give people the opportunity. Look, if it's not for you, that's fine. But just tell me so I can move on. Otherwise, I'm going to keep coming back.
Yeah.
And
That's
what's the
great
worst that can
advice,
happen?
actually. Yeah, 100%. I just wanted to write that down before I forget that. That's great
No,
advice.
so
Okay, um, so to finish up then, now this question, I don't want to give away the title of your book, but my final question is,
yeah.
if your career was a film, what would the title be and who would play you?
Space jockey, Danny Dyer.
Love that. Wow, that's a cool one. Space jockey, Danny Dyer. Danny Dyer.
It's actually the name of it's actually the name of my book, to be fair.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah, awesome. Love it. Into how when it comes out, what a name. Okay, Patrick, thank you so much, mate. That was great.
No, not at all.
Yeah, please like, subscribe, give us a follow across, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.